Good evening. It's a pleasure to see all of you here tonight. My name is Yannis Miaoulis, and I'm President and Director of the Museum of Science. Welcome to this special event honoring the 39th recipient of the Bradford Washburn Award, the highest prize that this museum bestows. This evening, we recognize outstanding contributions to science and celebrate the continuing legacy of Brad Washburn, our former director. The Bradford Washburn Award was established in 1964 by a museum trustee who wished to remain anonymous on the occasion of Brad's 25th year as director at the museum. The prize is to be presented to an individual anywhere in the world who has made an outstanding contribution to the public's understanding of science, its fascination with science, and the recognition of the vital role it plays in our lives. The recipient of this award receives a gold medal bearing the image of a youth set against the backdrop of a high mountain, symbolic of the striving for excellence. Accompanying the medal is a $10,000 honorarium. At the museum today, we're undertaking transformative work to supporting engineering standards for grades K through 12, to making the museum a destination for adults, and to encourage technological literacy for all. And yet, the same core mission, the commitment to stimulating interest in science and technology for all visitors, remains constant. The spirit of the Brad Washburn Award reflects the commitment to excellence. This award has been presented to outstanding individuals from all around the world: explorers, writers, teachers, and researchers. Past recipients include Carl Sagan, Jane Goodall, Walter Cronkite, and with us this evening is Dr. Timothy Johnson, who I believe is sitting somewhere there, who received the award in 1998. These men and women have devoted much of their lives to sharing their passion for science with the world. I'm sure you will find this year's recipient carries on this tradition. Tonight, we honor an individual many of us know as a star, from films, from the stage, and from television. He now devotes his energies and time to making others aware of stars, the celestial kind. And he helps tell the stories of the risks, experiments, and successes of scientific discovery as host of the current television series, Scientific American Frontiers. With his accessible style and ability to ask the right questions, he has become an effective ambassador for science for everyone. Alda's accomplished career spans nearly 50 years. An actor's son, he knew early on what he wanted to do. To be entertained as he was, when as a youth with polio, he spent countless hours listening to radio programs. Mr. Alda attended Fordham University, where he immersed himself in writing and theater. It was there that he met his wife, Arlene Wise, and they have been married since 1957. The Aldas have 3 daughters, 2 of whom are with us tonight, Eve and Elizabeth, and the Alda family sitting in the front. Mr. Alda made a name for himself in the entertainment world over the next 2 decades, appearing in numerous plays, movies, and television series. In the early 70s, he achieved mega star status, portraying as Dr. Hawkeye Pierce in the television series MASH, a role he played for nearly 10 years. In recent years, Alan has continued to appear in movies including Crimes and Misdemeanors and Manhattan Murder Mystery. He performed on Broadway in the hit play Art and starred last year in several episodes of the NBC TV series ER. A lifelong science buff, Alan Alda took on a very different role when a decade ago he agreed to host the PBS show Scientific American Frontiers. He travels the world to meet leading scientists and helps them share their important work and discoveries. I was walking around the museum with Alan a little while ago, and I was very happy to learn that he had done pretty much a show on everything I have displayed at the current science and technology. So here I was going with excitement to show him this new technology. He said, yeah, I have done this show. Then I'll go to the next one, and I've done this show before. Well, at least it shows that his interests and our interests are in high levels of correlation here. Launched in 1993, this series has brought science and technology into the homes of millions of viewers. Alan Alda embodies the essence of the Bradford Washburn Award: a love of science, a passion for knowledge, and a commitment to communicate with the public in order to further their understanding. Alda and Brad Washburn, will you please join me at the podium? Brad, will you please read the citation, please?
Engaging host of Science American Frontiers, you bring the world of research and investigation home to television viewers all over the world. You make accessible to laymen like yourself the complex data, the fascinating stories, and the successes of practicing scientists from all around the world. Entertainment star of long-standing, you shed light on other luminaries and serve as a true ambassador for science, its import, and its splendor. Alda, we honor you and salute your outstanding contribution to the public understanding of science and technology.
That's what it says on there, huh?
Yes.
That's great.
Alan, it is a great honor to present you with the Bradford Washburn Golden Medal.
Great.
And please accept this check. Please accept this check for $10,000 as tangible evidence of our high esteem. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you the 2003 Bradford Washburn honoree, Alan Alda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was a little late in getting here tonight. It was about a month late. And I want to tell you all about that, but first, please let me thank Yanis and Brad Washburn for this amazing honor of including me in the list of names who have won this award. I mean, I think this is one of the great calculating errors of science. It's a little bit like when they were counting all the canals on Mars, you know. I want to thank you all especially for calling attention through this award to Scientific American Frontiers. I'm very proud to be part of this program. For 10 years now, we've done over 80 episodes on just about every aspect of science. It's been 10 of the happiest and most stimulating semesters of my education. And after 10 years, I'm still excited to see one of the greatest and most beautiful inventions of nature. And by that I mean the brain of a scientist. I get to spend the whole day with scientists and just chat about their work, and it's fantastic. What we try to do on the program is we try to show how scientists think, who they are as people. And we try to present in a simple way, but accurately, what they do. And of course, to make the thing personal, the producers are always including me in their experiments. Let me give you a little taste of what we do. We put together. This is the science of basketball.
Sorry about that.
The apparatus I'm wearing shows the scientist exactly where I'm looking when I shoot.
The idea here is that during the quiet eye moment, my brain is absorbing and organizing all the information it needs for taking the shot. Once my body starts the action itself, vision becomes irrelevant.
Actually seeing this, I believe now that I only have to look at it 2 seconds, and then I can let my body do what it does. and it goes right in him. I mean, it's amazing. It works.
Oh, sweet.
You know what I love about it is, I mean, you do what all the scientists on this program do, who we interview. You find a way to look at what people haven't looked at yet, and to measure it.
Yeah.
And you just lift up the carpet and you show what's under. Come here. The science of improving dog breath. When you speak about this, and you will, be kind. I don't know what this dog has been eating, but this is definitely a dog.
We have a race to see who goes.
I always have to catch things on the show.
Oh, there's something in here. Oh, gee. Watch out, there's something in there.
Yeah, a cricket or something.
What? A cricket.
A cricket and an itsy bitsy spider and...
You never know what it could have been.
A worm.
Could have been a scorpion. Something.
Yeah, probably
Catching
another
spiders
cricket.
in Arizona.
No, a spider.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Let's see, what kind?
Very aggressive spider. That's a spider.
Ah,
What is it?
well, that is an Agelonopsis aperta.
I told you. Catching reindeer in Lapland. Good, thank you. Now what do we do?
Now it's time to do my bit for science.
Are we going to measure him?
Okay.
You're on.
Oh, great. Whoa! Bison in Oklahoma.
Watch out for the equipment there. There you go.
Did you get it? Did we get it?
Got it.
We got it. Good. Take this. I'll be at the luncheonette. And my all-time favorite, a great white shark off of Hawaii. That's a gigantic head on this,
Yes.
this shark.
It's like a big tadpole.
It's doing what?
It's biting the boat.
It's biting the boat. That doesn't sound like what you said before about not biting things that aren't food.
That's the great thing about science. It's a world of discovery.
Does it make any difference if you rub her tummy? I mean, does that help her quiet down?
I don't know. But, you know, it's a very, very common phenomenon in all vertebrates today.
Oh, gee. Oh, boy. That's like, oh, no, I'm playing the part of Richard Dreyfuss. Oh, is he busy today?
Better.
What do I do with this?
We're going to put it right in that incision, right on the back of the shark, right here where we made that small incision, right there. Push. Beautiful. Give it a knot. One more knot. There you go. A little bit more. Perfect. There it is, right there. There's the transmitter in place, and we can follow her wherever she goes. That's perfect. You should do this for a living.
No, I shouldn't even do this for a living. There have been times when the things we've seen have been downright discouraging.
On the reef, there are fans at every stage of deterioration. This one's lost almost all its living tissue. So out we came, cold and wet, tired, depressed at the state of the reef. And as if that weren't enough,
I have a blister from my flipper.
then I realized that my companions don't care about working conditions. It's knowledge they're after.
I love it. Science.
Here's
The main reason I love it is because I get to meet scientists like Cynthia Kenyon.
Boy, they're just
Look
sitting
at
out in the
them.
sun. Huh?
Look at them. There are two of them.
They're on their lawn chairs.
They are, or maybe even in the nursing home. And this worm is still a little bit active, but it's nothing like a young worm. And look at its body. See this big gap here and these little pock marks? It doesn't look young anymore. It looks very old now. And actually, what I think is really interesting is that anyone in the world looking at these worms can see that they look kind of old. So in other words, there's something about the aging process that speaks to you directly from an animal of any type.
In a series of experiments that became instant classics, Cynthia has made worms that live twice as long as normal. First, she gave normal worms a bath in a rather unpleasant chemical that causes random changes or mutations in the genetic material inside the worm's cells. Next, she laboriously placed thousands of single worms onto their own individual dishes. Now she could follow each worm over time, generation after generation. Most worms died or lived shorter lives because of their mutations. But in a few, there was a single change, a change in one gene that led to longer life. So now, living in the incubator in Cynthia's lab is a strain of mutant worm that lives 4 weeks rather than 2.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. You change one gene and you essentially you cure this disease of aging. Let's put it, if you want to put it that way.
I'm taking this very personally here for a minute because well, I'd like to live to about 106. At least that's what I've always thought. Now I may switch. Maybe I'm too modest. Maybe I should go for 140 or so.
Why not?
Yeah, well, that's what I want to ask you. Why not?
A couple of months ago, we went to Chile to find out why astronomers are overthrowing everything we thought we knew about the universe. You and I and these rocks and the sun that shines on us and the stars that twinkle overhead aren't even built of the same stuff that most of the universe is made of. And there's a mysterious force out there in space that literally comes out of nowhere. It's a force that seems to be pushing the universe apart faster and faster, until one day, everything out there beyond our own little solar system will simply disappear into blackness. Our universe and our place in it just got a whole lot weirder.
So you're going to observe, right?
You mean more than I am now?
Yes, right here.
You want me to actually...
You're going to sit here, yes.
The end of science as we know it. All right. Okay. Well, now let's see. I'll just hit a few keys here.
Oh, no way.
I just like to poke around. Yeah. That's how I learn, you know. What should I do first?
No. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
There it goes. There it is. And that sound was the shutter opening.
What will a supernova look like?
It'll actually, on an image like this, for example, what it would look like is a star. And so that spot on the edge of this fuzzy blob, galaxy, could be a supernova.
The tape stops abruptly right there for a reason. It's because that's where we were a month ago, and it's why we all didn't get together a month ago the way we were supposed to. I'll tell you exactly what happened down there, moment by moment. This is what happened that night down on that mountain in Chile. While the crew was lighting the observatory's control room that you just saw us in, I was waiting in the other room, and I heard this gurgle in my stomach. And I didn't know what it was, and I thought, well, that could be trouble. But now, well, it's just one gurgle. And I went back to thinking about the interview. I was thinking about dark energy in the universe. And then my stomach gurgled again. This time it was with real pain. And I looked down and I saw that my belly was twice the size that it was a few minutes earlier. So I went in to do the interview that you just saw, pressing the button and everything. And what they told me was fascinating. The idea is that by examining these supernovae and by looking at the redshift, astronomers will be able to tell how fast that galaxy is moving away from all the other galaxies in the universe, and they'll be able to get a clue about the ultimate fate of the universe. Contrary to what everybody thought, the universe, the expansion of the universe is not slowing down. It slowed down to a certain point about 5 billion years ago, and it started speeding up again, and it's going faster and faster and faster, this expansion. So what is this dark energy that's pushing everything apart? And will it keep spinning out forever? What's going to be the ultimate fate of the universe? How will it all end? Well, this is, really fascinating stuff. But by the time the interview was over, the pains were coming in waves. And they took me in an ambulance down from the top of the mountain, an hour and a half down these bumpy roads to this little town, La Serena, Chile. And we were met there by a doctor who by incredible luck, turned out to be an expert in abdominal surgery. And he immediately knew what was wrong with me. It was not appendicitis. It wasn't the hot pepper I had at lunch the day before, which I thought it might be. And he told me I had to be operated on immediately. Now, the pressure on the producer of the show, Graham Chedd, was just enormous. Graham had to weigh everything that he saw. He had to figure out what he was seeing, what he was being told, because he was the one who was conscious. I was like in and out of the pain. I didn't know what was happening. And then he had to get in touch with my wife 5,000 miles away in New York, and then he had to get through to me 5,000 miles away on planet morphine and help us come to a decision. What were we going to do? And he was looking around the room, and there's this emergency room, trying to figure everything out with the information he was getting. It was an interesting place. The guy in the next bed had gunshot wounds. The guy across the room had knife wounds, and we found out later that they were self-inflicted. he had been captured by the police, and in order to get away from the police, he stabbed himself a bunch of times so that they would have to take him to the hospital. And then he had arranged with his girlfriend to be waiting for him outside the hospital, and when they weren't looking, he slipped out, met his girlfriend, and escaped. There are 8 million stories in La Serena. So the doctor came over and he said, he could speak a little English, and what he said was, here are your options. You could be operated on here in La Serena, or we could try to get a plane to fly you to Santiago where the hospitals are bigger, but our airport here is all fogged in. So if you wait for the fog to clear, you may not make it. Nobody had ever said that to me before. In a couple hours, you may be dead, you know? So then he went into a little more detail. He said the blood supply to some of your intestine has been choked off. It was about a yard of my intestine. And he said, we have to cut out the bad part and sew the 2 good ends together. And I said, oh, you're going to do an end-to-end anastomosis. He said, how did you know that? I said, oh, I did many of them on MASH. And it's true, I did. I did them on day players, on extras. So in only an hour and 10 minutes, he finished the operation. And Graham had a telephone, a cell phone right there. They woke me up right after the operation. I talked to my wife, Arlene, on the phone. She was back in New York. And she started getting on the phone. She flew down to be with me in La Serena, and so did 2 of our daughters. And I started to get better right away from that. And as soon as I started to get used to the stitches, the hospital stay got very interesting. The day nurse started to teach me Spanish, which was fascinating, and the astronomers from the observatory came over every day to visit with me, and they'd sit on the other bed, and they'd chat with me about dark energy and dark matter in the universe. And about the curvature of space-time, which was a wonderful experience, because it was like going to a university where they don't give you an exam, but you get to quiz them. And because I had this big question that I was asking all of the astronomers that I met as we shot this show. The question was, what does Einstein mean when he says that space is curved? And it's bad enough that space is curved. Space-time is curved. How do you curve time, even if you can figure out how you curve space? I wanted to know from the astronomers, what was an image that they could give me that would help me understand this? And I asked everybody I met. I mean, what I didn't understand is that it's impossible to get an image to understand this. Even Einstein couldn't really explain it. He had a suggestion. He had a way of looking at it. He said, picture a mattress on which you put a bowling ball and think of the depression, or think of a rubber sheet that's stretched on a frame and you put a bowling ball on that rubber sheet that's been stretched. It'll depress the rubber. Then if you roll a baseball across it, it'll curve in toward the bowling ball because the space has been curved. Well, the only thing wrong with that for me is that that's just a slice. It's a 2-dimensional slice of what's happening with curved space. And anyway, when you add the 4th dimension of time, how do you picture that? And I really was hungry to understand that. I decided that by the time I left Chile, somebody would explain it to me. I was haunted by desire in Chile, and the object of my lust was curved space. But all the astronomers laughed at me. They chuckled at me. One after another, they said almost the exact same words to me. Why do you think you should be the one person out of 6 billion who can picture curved space? But see, here's the thing. I think that they can picture it. I think that through the language of mathematics, they get an image of it that I can't get, and that most of us who are lay people can't get. I have a mathematician friend who said that when he was a boy and just becoming interested in mathematics, he was charting the course of a pendulum. And as he made the chart and he saw the design that it made on the chart, the various measurements he was taking, he said, I suddenly realized that nature could have an order, but that you could only see that order if you understood mathematics. And my problem is I feel it's too late for me to learn mathematics. And for some reason, their language can't be translated into my language. Well, anyway, after a few more days, we flew home, and I saw our New York doctor, who wondered if the altitude might not have had something to do with what happened to me down there, a shift in the pressure inside my body and outside my body. So Arlene said, no more shooting this show on mountains. And my doorman had an opinion. He said, why can't you do your show in Central Park? They got a rock there. You get on the rock, they put in some ice behind you, boom, you're in Alaska. So back in New York, I was supposed to take it easy, I was supposed to rest. But I was still high on being alive. I wasn't just restless, I was manic. And I kept starting little projects around the apartment. We have a French grandfather clock from around 1840. And it had gained about 5 minutes a day since we bought it. So I decided to fix it. And I remembered the principle of physics with a pendulum, that it's not the weight of the pendulum that determines its swing, it's the length of the pendulum. So I went to the hardware store, I sort of hobbled out to the hardware store, and I bought a bolt and a nut, and I lengthened the pendulum. Now instead of being 5 minutes fast a day, slow a day, it got to be a minute fast a day. So I knew I was going in the right direction. And then I shortened it a little bit, and a couple hours later, bang, it was precise to the second. And I was thrilled. I wasn't just measuring time, I was measuring gravity. Gravity, time, and space. I had them in my control, even if I couldn't picture them. And like the dog with his nose out the window, the neighborhood smelled great to me, even if I couldn't tell you where it was on the map. Fiddling with the pendulum, I felt as if I had touched gravity itself. I'd put my hand inside its belly, and I'd felt its beat, its rhythm. And then suddenly I realized this is exactly what you do here at the Museum of Science. You put people in physical contact with the laws of nature. Instead of going to Chile, I could have come here and saved myself a lot of trouble. This museum and Scientific American Frontiers, I think, are both working on meeting the challenge that Albert Einstein set for scientists all over the world when he said all theories ought to lend themselves to a description so simple that even a child could understand. It's an idea that goes back a long time. Leonardo da Vinci said that simplicity is the highest form of sophistication. But of course, we have to make sure that we don't make it so simple that we destroy its meaning through oversimplification. I think the goal is not dumbing down. The goal is clarity. Just clarity. And again, Albert Einstein said it very well. He said a thing should be explained as simply as possible, but no simpler. On the other hand, Big Al, as one of the astronomers called him, Big Al maybe shouldn't get a free pass in the metaphor department. There was a time when reporters were hounding him for a simple explanation of relativity. And finally, he was sick of listening to them. He says, oh, relativity, okay. He said, an hour sitting with a pretty girl on a park bench passes like a minute, but a minute sitting on a hot stove seems like an hour. I mean, that's certainly simple. And I suppose it's true as far as it goes. But I have this funny feeling that's not the insight they gave him the Nobel Prize for. So if the great one could get frustrated and occasionally oversimplify, the rest of us are certainly not going to find it easy. But if it's so difficult, why bother? Why go to the trouble? Why not let scientists speak their own language to one another and just get on with their work? Well, I think for one reason, because every scientist knows that good communication leads to good funding. That's one thing. But I think there are a couple of other good reasons, too. Beauty and danger. No one sees nature in all its intricate beauty the way an imaginative, passionate scientist does. That's the beauty part. The danger, in my opinion, is that now more than ever, we're able to both live and die by science. We haven't escaped the consequences of the immense growth in our own intelligence. If we don't understand the powers that we possess over nature, either we'll misuse them or they'll misuse us. But here's the question, is our understanding growing or shrinking? Scientists are approaching the very peak of the Himalayas of human knowledge. But for the rest of us down here in the valley, we live among the greatest number of people ever alive at any time who believe in magic. There's a daily column in almost every newspaper on astrology, and there's only an occasional article about astronomy. According to the New York Times, just recently, a new Gallup poll shows that 48% of Americans believe in creationism and only 28% in evolution. And Americans are more than twice as likely to believe in the devil than in evolution. 68% for the devil, 28% for evolution. How about this? How about this? If you go to www.afterlifetelegrams.com, you might want to write this down. You'll read this exciting offer, quote, for a donation of $5 per word, 5-word minimum, we can have telegrams delivered to people who have passed away. You haven't heard the best part yet. This is done with the help of terminally ill volunteers who memorize the telegrams before passing away and then deliver the telegrams after they have passed away. So, I guess we have a lot of work to do here. Here's what I have in mind. They always ask the winners of the Nobel Prize what they're going to do with their prize money, and I suppose you're wondering what I'm going to do with the check that I got tonight, even though it's not on the same scale. But I understand. That's what I'm going to do, I got a similar amount from Caltech last year when I gave their commencement address. Brilliantly, I might add. And I'm going to use these two checks, I'm going to put them together and use them as seed money for looking into a program where young scientists can be systematically trained to talk and to write about their own work. As far as I know, there are few, if any, efforts to train scientists from the ground up, to train them from the ground up in the skills of communication, creative communication. Right now, pretty much the only scientists who reach the public in a popular way are those who naturally have the talent for communication. But communication can be taught. It's a skill. It can be taught in the same way that science can be taught. And I'd like to see it presented as a systematic study and become a standard element in the preparation for a life in science. That's what I wish for anyway. And my trip to the other end of the earth has clarified that wish for me. I went down to Chile hoping to understand the incomprehensible and to visualize the unseeable. But what I came back with was a desire to hear scientists say the sayable, but to say it even better. After Chile, I'm hungrier than ever to hear from them. I've never felt this ecstasy before at the taste of being alive. I've never felt as alive as I do now. Everything is in vivid colors now. Smells are pungent. The ordinary is extraordinary to me. The experience in Chile it's hit my reset button. And in fact, except for the dying part, it was a wonderful experience. And it was a perfect detour on my way here to the Museum of Science. It's a place where you can put your hands on nature itself. I thank you for being the kind of place you are here, and I thank you for welcoming me back home. So that's how I spent my fall vacation. Are there any questions? We're turning the lights up. Any questions about the film we showed you? Like, did you understand that we weren't stabbing the shark? We were putting a radio transmitter in the shark so he could be tracked. And actually, it'll save the lives of a lot of sharks whose lives, contrary to common wisdom, ought to be saved because they're being attacked unwisely, and one of the ultimate things is they're going to become endangered, and they'll hurt the whole food chain. And the fishing industry is being destroyed in some of these areas because the sharks are destroyed. This is so interesting. I asked you for a question. I'm answering my own question. I found out from that scientist, sharks are destroyed if a shark attacks a human. They go out and kill all the sharks in the area. And what they don't know is the shark who did the attack is now about 600 miles away because they travel. They have a route they travel, and it goes maybe thousands of miles. And they're finding this out with the radios that they're putting in their bellies. And as a result, we'll understand a little bit more about our relationship with this animal who we right now fear probably a little too much. So, yes.
What are your ideas for teaching the scientists? Through universities or through
the question was, what are my ideas about this thing I talked about training for scientists in communication? Yeah, I'd like to see it happen where they learn the science. I'd like to see it happen at Caltech, MIT. Now, and most of these places already have programs where they teach reporters to write about science. And that's a wonderful program. And there's some beautiful stuff written by non-scientists about science. And some of these works have transported me. I think they're brilliant. But I don't think there's anything like a scientist writing about his or her own work. And you get not only a sense of the science from that, but often you get a sense of the person behind the science. A friend of mine, Alan Dressler, wrote, he's an astronomer, and he wrote a book about these 7 scientists seven astronomers getting together to discover this thing that's that big out in the sky called the Great Attractor that's sucking some of the universe over to it. And he told it like the movie The Seven Samurai. And it was very exciting and very funny, and only he would know how to tell that story in the way he told it. So you got the humanity and you got the science. And a lot of us, I think all of us, including the scientists, can benefit from getting a door in through humanity and having that leg up into the science. I think it helps a great deal. So I'd like to see it take place as the science is learned alongside. Well, that's what I'd like to see. I'm just one voice in the wilderness. I hope science institutions of education might one day do that. Yes, sir. Oh, yes.
I would like to ask, what would be the, quote, job opportunity for someone who took a couple of years like this? Are there many opportunities for people who come in and popularize science? Commented about how uncommon it is to have
yes.
astronomy versus astrology.
Yes.
So I presume the globe would be the place to go.
Well, probably maybe you could drag some people in through their interest in astrology. Because humanity found astronomy through astrology, so maybe what that thing phylogeny imitates ontogeny and several other words I can barely pronounce. Yeah, I mean the question is, once you get all these scientists talking, I think your question is, once you get them all talking in this wonderful way about their science, will anybody listen? And I think they will. I think that's the idea. I think the more human voices we have talking about this subject, which is, it's the subject of our age. I was interviewing a scientist about quantum mechanics once, and I said, is it true that 60 or 70% of our economy runs because of what we know about quantum mechanics? And he said, no, I don't think so. I think it's about 99%. I mean, our understanding of nature has made our lives so vastly different from what the lives of people were 100 years ago. 100 years ago, the medicines were almost all placebos, so that if you went to a doctor, he knew he was giving you a placebo whether you knew it or not. Look at how vastly different that part of our lives is, and the communication that we use, the things that, the stuff we use, the new materials that we use. These materials didn't exist 100 years ago. Our lives are completely prescribed by science. Why shouldn't we know about that? We must know about it because we elect people who then give these Golden Fleece Awards to real scientists. There was the editorial in this week's Science, the journal Science, talked about how the NIH nearly got unfunded in several projects because those projects were exploring human sexuality. And a few congressmen thought that human sexuality is better left alone. I'm willing to go along with that in their case. Huh? I think there's something to genetic endowment. How about over here? Are we one more question? Yes.
How can a museum improve adult scientific literacy and draw in adult learners to start them sometimes from the beginning on quantum mechanics, for example?
That's a terrific question. I'm really glad you said that because I was asking that question earlier during the reception, and I think that's a question you ought to get together with Giannis with later. I asked, do you target young people in this museum? And they apparently they do go after young people, and they also seriously try to go after curious adults who are a significant part. Is this right, Giannis? A significant part of your audience, and there are so many. You know, the equivalent of Scientific American, the magazine, the equivalent of Science News, which tries to make the most difficult things available to those of us who aren't specialists in that particular field on an adult level. I think that's a great model, and I think people who come to this museum and people who watch Scientific American Frontiers go through a similar experience, that something that appeals to kids on one level can at the same time appeal to adults on a slightly different level. And it's possible to talk on two levels at once, or at least give them a chance to get from one level to another. And I'd like to see more and more of that done, because there are a lot of us who are curious and want to know more at every age. So that's all we have time to talk about, and I'm so glad to have talked with you tonight, and thank you again so much for this great honor. Thank you.
That was fascinating. Lots of ideas to think about during dinner. And speaking of dinner, our volunteers will escort you to the Nichols Gallery, and what a nice dinner is waiting for us.